Okay. I can barely hear that. This week on the Virtual Skeptics, Bob's head is spinning. Eve's head is spinning. Barb's head is spinning. And Tim spins me right round, baby, right round. Like a record, baby, right round. I'm your host, Brian Gregory. And apparently, I want your love. Oh, let me switch back to the logo there. Hi, we're live. This is the Virtual Skeptics. Thanks for tuning in. I will not apologize this week. If I do, I'm sorry. Never mind.
That was very meta.
Yes, very meta. Very meta. I won't do that again. I promise. If I do, I'll apologize. Okay. This is the Virtual Skeptics. I'm going to introduce these guys. And we're going to do it in the same order we do it every stinking week because we're not going to mix it up at all. There's Bob. Look, it's Bob Blaskiewicz. See this guy, conspiracy guy, web columnist. Columnist.
Yes.
Qualumist.
He expresses his qualm.
He's a qualmist. Blogger for Skeptic Humanities and Swift blog contributor. Next up, we got Eve Siebert. She's got two Eves. Editor and blogger at Skeptical Humanities and contributor to Skepticality. Next up, Tim Farley, former JRF fellow, blogger at Skeptools, Skepticality contributor, and creator of What's the Harm? And finally, Barbara Drescher, former psychology instructor, blogger for ICBS Everywhere, and contributor to numerous skeptical projects, including The Odds Must Be Crazy. And they are. The odds are crazy. Hi, this is Virtual Skeptics. I said that 5 times now. If you're watching, great. If you want to contribute, you have many, many ways you can contribute. You can tweet with hashtag Virtual Skeptics. You can post a comment on the YouTube page. And you can ask us a question. Notice I said ask a question on the Q&A app on Google+.
Does something like really awful happen if they add a comment to it?
I just don't know how to deal with it. So there you go. Okay. It's all about me. Thank you very much. First up, as we do every week, Tim Farley, the wonderful, fabulous Tim Farley, is going to ask us a question, and you will have to answer. You like how I did that?
Yes. You will. You must answer.
You will do it.
You'll do it.
We can take the answer on Twitter or on the YouTube comments. Today, July 2nd, is the birthday of a well-known skeptic of alternative medicine who is also a retired physician. Who is this person? Happy birthday.
No Googling.
Deepak Chopra.
I can't stop you.
Not Deepak's birthday.
The secondary question, which we do every week, which actually it's just me. It's a thing I do. It's all about me. You know, the show is all about me.
It's basically the Brian show.
It's the Brian show. There are 2 screens behind me. They're playing things repeating. And if you can guess what they both are, I will give you a nice word. Admiration. I will give you a virtual pat on the back. I don't know.
A new car.
A new giant freaking juggling robot. No, I'm kidding. We did have a question come in right away. Guess what? We got a question right away. And since TAM is coming up, I figure we just go ahead and do this really quick. Brian Dunning asks, is there a VS Virtual Skeptics meetup at TAM? Anyone want to field that? Anyone?
Oh, well, there wasn't one
I'm not going to
planned,
TAM, so.
If people wanted, if they want to meet up, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, you guys should do one.
Yeah. Okay, sure.
Yep. Tim and I are not going to be at TAM.
All our fans.
All of our fans. So we're going to, we'll have a meetup, and I won't be there, but there will be probably one person there.
We'll put info
could you be there virtually? I mean,
if we can.
Yeah.
We talked about doing some kind of virtual thing. We talked about doing an episode possibly. We don't have a firm plan yet, but we'll try to work something out. And
we'll put it in the show notes for this show.
Yeah, we'll retroactively put it in this show. Right here. We're going to edit it right here.
Edit point.
What?
Never mind.
I don't get you.
That's
I don't want to do it.
he was going to fix it in post.
Oh, I
There you
get
go,
you.
yeah.
Yes. See, that's the terminology. Thank you, Barb.
Bob's confused, and yet Bob was the one guy who made me edit the show one time. We will not talk about why, but...
We're not gonna talk
That would
about
defeat the
going there.
purpose of editing it.
Yes. Oh, no logo. Okay. So first up this week, we got Eve. Eve's going to talk about apparently Ouija board possessions.
You betcha.
Huzzah.
I was there once.
Well, it's a quick story because we have a full program. But a week or two ago, there was a story on Doubtful News. I don't know if y'all remember Doubtful News. It still exists, and it's great. But a story about 3 young adults who were possessed by evil spirits while playing with a Ouija board in Mexico. Alexandra Huerta, her brother Sergio, and their cousin Fernando Cuevas had to be hospitalized after falling into violent trances. So what happened was, minutes after beginning to use the Ouija board, which according to the Christian Post features occult symbols, also letters and the words yes and no, after beginning to use this to communicate with otherworldly spirits, Alexandra began to growl and thrash around. The others also began acting oddly. According to family members, the men were temporarily struck blind and deaf and suffered hallucinations. And an ambulance was called. The first responders restrained the patients and also conveniently took cell phone video of Alexandra because that's what you expect the paramedics to do. Yeah.
Do you have it? Do you have a video?
No, we have a slide of the video, just a screen grab. We don't have the video, but I can basically recreate it. It goes something like this. Hold
on.
Wow.
Hold on, I'm calling an ambulance.
I'm imagining that right now. Imagining looking at okay. What's with the what's with the padding? Is that because they thought she was crazy and they had to keep her from hurting herself?
She was thrashing about, so she was restrained. Yeah, and that's pretty much 2 minutes of that.
Wow.
At one point, she says, presumably in Spanish, "We're going to die," and the paramedic says, you know, she has to get better for her family, and she says, "They will die." Both these statements are true, though not imminently so necessarily.
That's true.
But it is.
It doesn't really matter who you're talking about.
Gloomy, but you know. Now the parents, possibly the parents. We'll get to that in a minute. The parents said a local priest refused to exorcise the 3 because they were not regular churchgoers. But that's okay because it turns out the painkillers, anti-anxiety meds, and eye drops they received at the hospital were just as effective, if not more so. Their symptoms, double vision, muscle spasms, and difficulty swallowing, went away. And by the way, I'm not exactly sure how you can have both blindness and double vision. Possibly it's double blindness. But
how could you tell?
Yeah. Maybe it was different people. I don't know. Or maybe at different points. And I have to say, though...
Maybe they were wearing glasses?
Sure.
That was the biggest blow-off. Cut her mic.
But I have to say, I'm dismayed by the quality of possession the devil is getting up to recently.
I know.
There's no levitating, no projectile vomiting, no head spinning, not even any Latin. I mean, just what kind? Yeah. What kind of self-respecting demon doesn't speak Latin? Maybe even a little Aramaic.
Yeah, I know.
I know.
No pea soup.
Yeah.
When I show my students, I say, "Have you guys ever seen an exorcism? You know, a real exorcism?" They're like, "No," and I'm like, "They're really boring." And then I show them one, and they're kind of, they have the movie image in their head, and no, it's just there's no way you could explain that person thrashing.
Yeah. But so if this sort of cut rate possession is what I'm going to get, it's not even worth going to the Toys R Us to get a portal to hell. Anyway.
It took me a second.
Yeah.
Yes.
So a couple of days ago, though, there was an update on the story from the always reliable Daily Mail. This update, and by the way, I checked the Daily Mail's original story on this. The update completely contradicts pretty much everything they said in the original story.
Is it just a screen where it says, "Oh, never mind"?
Yeah.
We forgot to include the word "not."
No, it gets even better in this version. So this story suggests that the three may have been possessed by something slightly more mundane than the devil. The Mail claims that Huerta took a hallucinogenic shamanic drug derived from a species of Brugmansia, or angel trumpet, of which I have a picture for no particularly good reason, but it's kind of a pretty flower.
Yay.
Which is the next slide. There you go.
Pretty.
Yeah. So now, if you're thinking, well, that explains it.
Oh, yeah,
nothing
I smoke
spooky
that.
here, you don't smoke it.
What?
Actually, I should say that plant atropine and scopolamine occur in that genus of plants. So there are interesting chemicals in it. But if you're thinking, okay, well, that explains it, nothing spooky here. Well, if that's what you think, then you really haven't looked at the Daily Mail recently. In the original story, in the Christian Post story, and also in the Daily Mail's original story, Alexandra and her brother were in their 20s. Their cousin was 18. Her parents are quoted, now she's 16 and she's an orphan. Yeah, so she got younger and lost her parents. And she, in the new Daily Mail story, as far as I can tell, she lost her parents when she was very young and when she was 16. Anyway, she and her relatives took the drug.
How old is she now?
16.
So, it's confusing.
It's just really badly written, yeah. She took the drug.
It's not written by a robot, that's the problem.
Yeah. And used
That's
the
called
board.
foreshadowing, people.
Yeah. Specifically to contact her dead parents. And her guardians don't think their reactions were, basically poisoning and hysteria. Instead, they think they were actually possessed and may still be possessed. This version of the story also claims that Alexandra did, in fact, speak in tongues at the hospital. And it also claims she tried to harm herself, which would explain why she was restrained. And if true, that is quite disturbing, obviously. As I said, the Mail story is badly written. It's confusing. It contradicts their earlier story. It seems to be self-contradictory, so it's hard to tell how much of it is true. But if any of it's true, it seems to be a pretty sad situation, actually. And the Mail is, of course, exploiting it for all it's worth. And, of course, so is whoever took the damn video in the first place. But one thing we can probably be pretty sure of, though, is that demons may not be the most plausible explanation for the video.
That's true. That is certainly true.
Yeah.
Wow, that was a really really sad story. Sad story. She lost her kid, lost her parents.
Perhaps.
But she did get younger. I don't know. That kind of balances it out.
Yeah, she went from being like 22 to being 16. So.
Did she eat their souls or something, and that gave her youth?
That's plausible. Yeah. But now she's forced to go and make strange guttural noises all the time,
Yeah.
which it's worse than. I mean, it's almost worse than Tourette's.
Is
in
it?
a way.
Maybe she's doing like this whole Dorian Gray thing. Never mind.
Wow, that was a freaky.
That was a
reference.
reach. That really was.
She's also, I believe, changed nationalities because in the original version of the stories, the three were actually referred to as being American, but in more recent stories, it seems that they're actually Mexican. So.
That's an awful lot
Possession.
of detail changes for a story that's that boring.
I know.
It really is. I mean, there's no, like you said, there's no levitation, there's no
Yeah.
Latin, basically it's just guttural noises. Maybe it's because they have video. They had to build a story around video.
Yeah.
Yep, I guess so. Thank you, Eve, for that story.
So they essentially got everything but the noises wrong.
Probably.
Sounds like.
Yeah.
Because the noises are on tape.
I mean, yeah, I have no idea
I
what
don't
the
think the
actual
noise was
story
right
is.
either.
Yeah.
It's not screaming and head curl. No.
Was it
So thank
growling?
you. Yes,
Referred to as
growling. I'm trying to move on, people. Okay. Thank you for that story, Eve. And as an uplifting story, Barbara's up next. Something about wrapping ourselves in happiness.
Happiness blankets. Yes,
Happiness
quite a
blankets.
switch. Happiness blankets.
Yes.
So British Airways released something this week about happiness blankets. They bought a bunch of happiness blankets that they were supposedly testing out on their first class passengers, of course. These blankets, I have a
That's
picture
guinea pig
of somebody
class.
in the
Do you have to wear the
happiness
head
blanket.
thing?
You have to wear the head thing, because what the head
Wow.
thing does is the head thing measures your brain waves, and then it's attached by Bluetooth to the blanket, and you'll see he's not very happy because his blanket is red.
Well, because they
And
only
when
gave
he's
him one
happy,
drink.
it turns blue.
And he appears
Yeah.
to be drinking urine.
Yeah, I don't know.
In
That's
a wine
Southwest.
glass. That's not British Airways.
Yeah, actually, it's one of those compartments by the looks of it. But this is a happiness blanket, and a lot of all the news outlets, picked this up and all talked about it. And most of them wrongly stated that the blankets were to help passengers sleep better, increase sleeping experience. I'm not sure what that means.
You have happy dreams.
Increase your sleeping experience, yes, or to improve cabin service. They released a video, and the video is very heartwarming and heartfelt, and I invite you to watch it because you won't believe that this is their first class passengers actually using the blankets, because they're all using it, and they all fall asleep at about the same time, and they all glow blue.
Are they perhaps laced with chloroform?
Good question.
Do they growl
Does
at all?
chloroform make you smile and act pleasantly? And they're all wearing suits, and they're it's just a little bizarre. So I don't think they actually bought the blankets to do anything, but they said that they were to test it, and they're supposedly going to use the information that they get to improve service, right? Why they didn't just do a survey is a good question. Probably because that's not really why they bought it. They bought it as Mashables, I think, said, you don't need happiness blankets to tell that passengers are miserable. You notice they didn't put it in the economy. Everybody noticed they didn't put it in the economy section.
Yeah, good point.
And I know, as Beta Beats noted that they were trying to prove that passengers aren't miserable for advertising, not for science. So they bought all these blankets to make this video to show that their first class passengers are relaxed after eating a meal and going to sleep. And in fact, I'll be willing to bet that, as I said, the video is probably staged. This probably wasn't the blankets in action, just a stage thing. But they did test them out on a few flights. But nobody's really talking about whether these things actually do what they say they do, right? So according to one article, these are something called the Mind Play headset. And they describe it as an all-in-one neurofeedback recording, reporting, and analysis device. Each one uses 2 sensors to detect brainwave activity as well as the user's level of concentration, and in parentheses focus, and relaxation, in parentheses meditation. Well, that last sentence doesn't even make sense to me, because, especially the as well as part, because it doesn't detect concentration and relaxation. Those are things you can't detect. You detect the markers of it, which would be the brain activity. So it measures some brainwave activity, which we assume is related to concentration or relaxation. And in that same piece, they say it measures a person's meditative state, giving it a number between 1 and 100. Okay, so it seems that what it's measuring is one thing. It's one thing that it's measuring, and that thing is not happiness. It shouldn't be called any of the other things it's been called either. I mean, I've seen them describe it as focus, concentration, meditation, tenseness. People are saying, well, it glows red when somebody's tense, or when
it's a bliss blanket. What's wrong with you?
It sounds to me like they've just borrowed whatever the technology is for that Star Wars mind control game.
Actually, it is that. It's funny that you should mention that, because it is the same technology. But and I'll get there in a second. Most of these things, the things that they're describing, like focus, concentration, happiness, emotions are very complex. You can't. You might be able to measure them in 2 dimensions and get something that's reasonably accurate, but you can't measure them in one. They're not one continuum from tense to relaxed. So a number from 1 to 100 is not going to give you much information. It's not going to tell you if somebody's happy. It's not going to tell you if somebody's upset. Excited is going to look the same as upset. What it seems to be measuring is something that you could measure with heart rate. So it's why they didn't use any EKG instead of, just a simple heart rate monitor. I mean, you could put them on the wrist.
Technology. Yeah.
And you don't look as cool with a band around your head. I don't know when it's on your wrist. But it was basically they bought it to make this video. But it is the same technology as the toys that you can buy at Toys R Us, where you concentrate and lift the ball. Right? If you've ever seen those, you can actually do. It's a Jedi mind trick where you concentrate and you lift a ball. And we have that technology now. What those headsets do is you train them. People's individual brain patterns are different. So you concentrate on whatever task it is, and to train the machine. And then later, whenever you concentrate again, it reads the exact same measurement, and then it completes the task. So you've told it, this thought pattern means I want to lift the ball. And so it lifts the ball. And I have no doubt that at some point we might be able to have devices that you don't have to train. I mean, voice recognition used to be you had to train it to an individual voice, and now we've gotten to the point where we've got things like Siri, right, that are pretty commonplace. But
just good enough to be frustrating.
Yeah, it can be. And I think that we may get to a point where we can do simple things. They sell the same headband as a game controller, or so that you can control computers and things like that to do very simple tasks. It is the same thing. But reading emotions, I seriously doubt they'll ever be able to do that. And you've got to keep in mind that we've got decades of development with polygraphs, and we still haven't built a lie detector that works. So measuring emotions, probably not going to happen with a little band around your head that transmits to a blanket. And I think the bottom line here is
to make you happy anyway.
It wouldn't. The idea is that the flight attendants can see
if you're happy.
That you're needing something, but it doesn't measure happiness at all. It just measures relaxation, I guess. Actually, they show all of the people going, to sleep under the blankets and relaxing, and the blankets turning blue. But if I'm right about how this works, once they got into, if you're in the first stages of sleep, that's what's going to happen. But once you get into a dream sleep, once you get deep enough to
That'd
start
be
breathing,
awesome.
Yeah.
it's going to turn red again because brain activity.
I don't know. It depends on how many alcoholic drinks they gave you beforehand. That's
Well,
what
then
I'm
you
thinking.
won't get to that point where you're in REM sleep. But once you're in REM sleep, the brain gets pretty active again. So I don't know. But I do know it doesn't measure happiness. And that they didn't buy them to measure happiness. They bought them to make a commercial where they could show all their happy first-class customers under these stupid blankets with their stupid headbands.
Well, I heard it referred to as a mood blanket, and
Yes,
and I
like a
think
mood
that's
ring.
Which
because
probably
it
works
works
just
almost
as
as well as a mood ring.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. which works with heat, I believe.
Yeah.
So if you get sweaty, you look like you're excited. And
Well, I don't know about you. I'm glowing blue right now. That was a very, very interesting article. Thank you, Barb. Up next, Bob. Bob is wow. I'm just gonna let you go, Bob, because I've got no intro for this.
Yeah.
Lots of caps in your notes, which makes me a little scared.
No, I mean I am becoming that guy. But
Becoming.
yeah, there's that. All right, so I go away from the internet for a few weeks, and what happens? The FDA goes completely and entirely insane. The FDA has lifted the clinical hold on the Burzynski Clinic's anti-neoplastin trials in a press release by the clinic released on June 23rd. Whoever wrote this said, the Burzynski Research Institute Incorporated announced today that U.S. Food and Drug Administration has notified the company that its partial clinical hold on its IND for antineoplastins has been lifted. The FDA has determined that under its IND, the company may initiate its planned Phase 3 study in newly diagnosed diffuse intrinsic brainstem glioma. The company is continuing discussions with the agency in an effort to finalize additional details of the Phase 3 study protocol for the potential clinical trial. And now that I read that out loud, it's new diagnoses. This means that they're not even going to get the benefit of radiation or chemotherapy before they go on like they did for the Phase 2 trials. That kind of...
Sorry.
Yep.
That was
my
pretty smooth.
iPad started singing.
Yay! So because
And now smooth jazz.
okay, so because we don't believe a thing that comes out of that house of misery, Skeptics waited for USA Today to confirm it before we started writing and talking about it, and USA Today did confirm. Quote, in a statement issued Wednesday, the FDA confirmed that it has lifted its restrictions on Burzynski because he answered all of their questions. In particular, Burzynski addressed, quote, common and serious, and in some cases fatal, adverse drug reactions, as well as accurate information on how often tumors shrink after treatment with antineoplastins. So apparently he answered their questions.
Is there a report somewhere?
It's so vague that, like, now the FDA is traditionally, and kind of by law, tight-lipped about protocols and that sort of thing, because apparently the test design counts as a trade secret and proprietary. So so they don't talk about it. But did all those people who overdosed get better? The 2/3 of the patients who were whose outcomes were inflated were it turns out that was all right. We deserve answers to that because there is a lot of pernicious shit in the if you pardon my language, a lot of pernicious shit in the 483s. And did they reconcile the problem with the two different sets of records for the same procedures? These are important questions. So all thinking humans everywhere were stunned. Even though we saw the FDA blink in March when it allowed patients to receive compassionate access to the drugs, as long as Burzynski wasn't treating the patients or administering the drugs, and also the patients had to get a real IRB to sign off on the trials, and apparently that happened somehow. What's infuriating is that in the wake of the March decision to let desperate patients on these if they jump through a bunch of hoops, A girl named Mackenzie Lowe managed to meet the requirements and find a doctor who was willing to oversee the treatment, Dr. Terry Bennett. He was stunned to find out what role he actually was going to play in the fleecing of the Lowe family. This is a quote from a interview he gave. Quote, "I'm supposed to be the bag man for all of this. They want me to collect the 30 grand for the family and send it to Burzynski." He also said that he compared the treatment to a bait and switch, which skeptics could have told him. And so then the next day, USA Today reports that they're going ahead with phase 3 clinical trials when he hasn't published a full phase 2 clinical trial in a reputable journal. So this is kind of gobsmacking. And yeah, go ahead.
How does this happen? I mean, is there some? I mean, like you said, the FDA.
He doesn't
is tight-lipped about some things. So I mean,
technically, he doesn't meet patients in the lobby with a chainsaw.
Or maybe
No.
there's some money changing hands.
I don't know, but we're not, and that's the big question. How the hell did this happen? And so that's actually what we're trying to answer now. We really have to. The Center for Inquiry has taken on the Burzynski issue, and their lobbyist, Michael Dodora, is helping us educate lawmakers and regulatory officials about the clinic, as well as demanding answers from the FDA at this point about why this was allowed to happen. To this end, today the FDA received a letter from the Center for Inquiry, and a press release went out as well. The letter read in part, quote, "As our April 16th letter to you described, and as amply documented by FDA inspectors themselves over the course of their decades-long review of the work of the Burzynski Research Institute, the BRI, its principal, and its staff have proven themselves incapable of following their own protocols, protecting patient rights, maintaining independent institutional review, or even maintaining accurate patient records." And so we ask, how did this happen? And how did he progress to phase 3 clinical trials? These are the two questions that we must have, and we're not going to walk away until we have answers for that. So while I was in... Yes?
No, are these things typically published? I mean, are these things that are for other studies and other trials like this? Are they public record? Is it something we have access to?
But that's not going to stop us at this point. We're stepping it up. This week while I was in St. Louis, I talked to representatives from Senator McCaskill's office, who, if you'll remember, dragged Dr. Oz across the coals 2 weeks ago. And I also attended with the woman who was largely responsible for bringing scam diets to McCaskill's committee's attention. It was a good meeting. They asked questions that make me think that they're serious about this issue. So I'm asking people to do 3 things. First is that skeptics contact the office of Senator McCaskill through her Consumer Protection Alert form. There'll be a link to that in the notes. And all I really want you to do...
We just tweeted it, too.
That's awesome.
Did you retweet that? Because I didn't.
Yeah, I just retweeted it.
We want people to thank them for taking this issue seriously. That's all. We don't need people to rant and rave about it. They know what's going on. I gave them I had them for an hour. So they know what's happening. So just let them know that this is worth the senator's time and her staff's time to pursue this. Secondly, it doesn't hurt to write to your congresspeople to investigate, and you can use the CFI letter as the basis of your correspondence. It's very good. It explains where we are at this point. And go ahead and modify that for your own use. Lastly, and this is the easiest of all, if you could share the Facebook link for the Skeptics for the Protection of Cancer Patients and maybe like it, that would be swell as well. So that's what we're doing. We're getting legislative on their asses.
I'm glad that we're doing something because,
Well, this is unacceptable. I mean, I don't want to occupy a universe that has this type of stuff going on in it.
Yeah, one can hope that maybe the right information just hasn't gotten to the right person yet.
That's what we're hoping, and if not, well, I really want. Well, I have ideas about what an ideal outcome would be. And so yeah.
No, we're not going to have to edit another video, are we?
No, we don't. No. No, I would
I'm not
personally. I
editing
think that all
videos.
we'd have to do is give Dr.
I'm
Burzynski
kidding.
a talk show, because every time he opens up his pie hole, he says something horrific and offensive. So, you know. Anyway.
Yeah.
That doesn't stop people who actually have talk shows, though.
That's true.
In
Good
fact,
point.
Helps a few of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we're pressing ahead. We're not stopping, and I look forward to talking to people at TAM about this. We're going to network, and I am not leaving TAM without the next movement in this symphony of sadness completed.
Awesome. Very sad story, but hopefully it'll have
A
eventual.
lovely image at the end, though, you have to admit.
Yes, it is.
I thought you were going to go somewhere else with movement, and it was not going to be lovely.
Yes, thanks. I was trying to avoid that joke. Thank you very much. To change gears and to maybe hopefully bring a little bit of,
Class to this joint.
not class, but certainly a more uplifting.
Circuits.
I'm so interested in what you have.
And I don't know what's up with the music. Music is just really quiet this week. There we go.
That's fine.
You got the bang of the drums there.
It's loud
Okay,
enough.
so now I'm not going to do that first. I'm going to do
Making us wait.
I'm going to do the story that doesn't have slides first, and I apologize it doesn't have slides because this is interesting, it's important, but there's no like giant, terror machine behind it. Earlier this week on Monday, the Associated Press announced that they will be using robots to write news articles. Currently, they say that they currently produce like 300 articles a month for their financially related articles about companies and things like that I don't understand. But apparently they're mainly tedious. They're mainly form-driven, and they can pull the data from certain automated resources, but they can apparently automate this process and ramp it up to like 4,000 or 5,000 some articles a month. And that's a good thing. They also say no one's gonna lose a job over this, and they say that it's mainly tedious work, blah 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 blah. Okay, so I did a little bit of research into the technology behind this, because apparently this is not the first time this has happened. There have been a lot of other companies that have been using automated journalism for a while now. And there's one company in particular called Automated Insights that's in the forefront of this. So they have a product called Wordsmith, and it's essentially it mines data and turns it into prose. And they've used it for I think that most online generated summaries of sports events are now all Wordsmith products. And this is apparently what they're going to be using for to pull. They're going to pull data straight from.
Careful.
Straight from.
Straight out of. No.
Well, there's a couple of online. I'm looking for my notes and I don't see it in front of me right now. I need to organize things a little better. But. Yes, it's not a supercomputer. It's not something fancy. It looks to me from their website like it's essentially just a form kind of generating thing. I used to do web work a long time ago, and we would hire people to do this kind of stuff called copy. So you'd have a templated website, and then we'd need filler prose.
Content providers.
Content, yes, but it's not content. It's more of like, well, we've got data in a database, but we want it to present it in a way that humans can read it. And it seems to me like it's a little bit of a twist on that. Maybe they do some algorithms to pull out particular interesting things and present it in some kind of prose format. There's an example on their website of the kind of thing, and it's not going on my page here. Let's see here. Here's a summary from like a fitness update app. that's pulling data apparently from, like, say it's tied to your history of workouts, and it says you topped your all-time 5-mile speed record today, running 5.8 miles in blah 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 blah, blows away your previous best. See, essentially it's saying the same kind of thing that an app would say. It just does it in sentences. So it's not really. Doesn't really seem to me like it's going to take any journalism job.
So what type of
soon.
Are they amping up which departments? Is it more sports stuff?
No, well, AP says they're going to be using it for their financial reports. So they're like 150 to 300 word articles they produce that summarize.
It's generally anything that's very stats heavy and has a standard form. So like a company annual report comes out and you need a summary that someone can read on the air, or fills a column in the back of the business section. And sports stuff, you need to summarize each game. And you might have a number of minor league teams, and it's just more ways that the newspaper industry is trying to adapt to.
I could see them taking this, adapting it to the tabloid market, where you just make up sleazy lies on the fly.
That would be a generator, not an aggregator.
It would be just the same.
Or summarizer.
Maybe they could use that scientific report generator and like poll stats. I mean, that wouldn't be too far-fetched.
Yeah.
It'd be like Mad Libs. Essentially, most of their articles are like that anyway. So.
Yeah, it's essentially like Mad Libs. There's two other related things that I'm aware of. I know somebody at Microsoft Research was doing the same thing for video to try to basically do a highlight reel from a sports game.
Oh yeah.
And it's similarly driven. I think they might use a sports ball game. Use the stats to figure out, but also just reviewing the video. Like in a baseball game in particular, there's a lot of motion on the screen at particular moments, and the score changes, and those are obviously the interesting parts of the game. So if you can pull that out and generate a set of highlights. But the really interesting one I love is there's a guy who wrote a computer algorithm and used it to write 85,000 books that you can buy on Amazon.com. And it's the same basic technique where he has basically mined things where there are public data sets or public domain information or other things that he can repurpose, and he used a computer algorithm to write text that's drawn from that. And apparently on Amazon, if you know what you're doing, you can actually submit ebooks and print-on-demand books. And he automated the whole process. So if you dig this guy's name up, he has written 85,000 books, and every single one of them really exists. But in many cases, no one's ever bought. No human has ever read some of those books because they were generated by the computer, put up into Amazon's cloud.
I wonder
if no one buys it, no one ever sees it.
Things like plot, or are they just large collections?
They're non-fiction books about, well, here are some of the titles. The 2002 official patient source book on cataract surgery. The Webster's
I read that.
English.
It's a page turner.
Yeah. Avocados, a medical dictionary, bibliography, and annotated research guide.
Oh, I laughed.
Wow.
I cried.
It became a part of you? Yeah.
The 2007 to 2012 outlook for bathroom toilet brushes and holders in the United States.
That would be a nice coffee table book. If
That book is 677 pages long, and it will set you back $495.
No, it won't.
Wow. I wonder if he's even sold one of these. If
Well, that's the thing. He generates them so cheaply that if he sells one of each one, he makes a ton of money, right?
Yeah. Wow.
Well, there was a recent thing on the media where this guy was just constantly making up songs. He did it was about an entire album about the dishes.
Yeah.
And and he was just.
And he'd go through the dictionary and write a song about every first name and every last name. So
Well,
if
that's
you
definitely something that could be
on
automated. 'cause-
Spotify, there's a song. No matter how
they make
obscure your name
t-shirts.
is, there's a song with your name in it on Spotify.
Remember
Well, the
there
point
was
I was going to get at this is that the media, a lot of the media outlets went crazy when they talked about robotic reporters, and I just wanted to get to the root of what's really going on. The state of the art of the technology isn't really that fancy. Essentially, it's just boilerplate type data retrieval into some kind of readable text. It's not a robot that's watching events and reporting on it. It's not journalism. And there really is no immediate threat of journalists being replaced by robots, which, it's kind of sad, I know, but...
What
They've
about...
already been replaced by robots at Fox.
Do people who juggle bugs, are they likely to lose jobs to robots?
If
Nice
they juggle
segue.
cars, they are
Oh, that
going
was
to
clever.
lose their jobs. Here you
that
go.
was brilliant.
That was brilliant. I'm going to play a little video here. Now, this is a concept video, obviously, but I'm going to let you this. Yes, it is a car juggling
Patent
robot.
pending.
No
Patent
kidding.
pending. Yep. It is 70 feet tall and hydraulic powered, and apparently it has like 5 or 6 engines in it running the hydraulics. The pilot is supposed to.
All of the ladders.
I know. The pilot is supposed to stand in the... See, there he is, and the top of this robot, and use some kind of haptic interface to control the arms so that it can juggle
Like in
because
Doctor
the man
Who?
can juggle.
Oh, you're right. That's exactly what it is.
Is it like a Cyberman? Here we go. He's going to
No,
pick up
like
the
the-
cars.
No.
There he goes. Volkswagen Bugs. He stashes one in his pocket.
The pilot vomits as they.
Yeah.
Because that's.
No
I
kidding.
guess.
Uh,
I mean,
yeah,
does
it
he
does not
do
look
the
like
bend
fun.
over?
I'm calling shenanigans.
Hold it. Wait for
This
it.
isn't real.
You got to wait for it. There you go. He's going to pick up the other one. A few more seconds, he's going to be juggling.
Is there a human standing in the middle of that bug?
They're idiots.
Well, they're wireframe people standing way too close than I would be to this thing. There we go. Here we go.
Have they
Ready?
no brains?
And he puts his arm down because he's gonna grab the other one. There you go. Up and there you go. Flying
So he has
Volkswagen Bugs.
a pocket for
70
the third
feet in the air.
Yes.
W
A
bug.
holster.
A holster. Yep. Now they don't say how he would stop. And they
Well,
don't
it's easy
say,
to stop juggling. It's
I know, and they don't say what would happen if he accidentally, flung one of those cars and it landed on the head.
Like that?
Look, he just drops one. So there you go. He just lets one of them fly. That's
And what
how he
about-
gets out of that.
What about his patter? Because that's important for juggler.
yeah.
Patter. Okay.
We're talking
Now
about
here's another
really
video. I
gross.
had to. This other video I had to play because it's really cool. This is the one of the guys on the project that does the robotic side of things, and this is him demonstrating a prototype. Of the arm control. And he's got this controller he puts on his arm, and the thing hanging from the stand in front is a robot arm, a hydraulic arm. And there he goes. He is throwing a brick in the air and catching it.
Cinder
Now,
block, yeah.
I know.
Okay. Can anybody
And if you look,
think of,
it did you see it? It says robot generated imagery.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
fake too.
So
Okay.
it's fake too. But still, it's a really cool concept.
You're full of crap, Brian.
What?
Didn't anybody think of anything, any better way, anything to use this technology for other than entertaining rednecks?
Battle bots.
Well, the only way you're going to get funding for something like this is like Red Bull or something, right?
Well, there's an
Not
advantage.
just entertaining.
Who sponsored the guy jumping from? Was it Red Bull that sponsored? The
Yeah,
guy who
jump from
yeah,
from
that was
the
an
inner
expensive
space,
endeavor. So
No, this isn't just entertainment.
Crowdfund.
What happens if Godzilla gets loose.
Good point. That's a good point. I guess we'd be
Could
better
dazzle him
prepared.
with juggling.
Yes, mesmerize him.
Robot to fight Godzilla.
Oh, see, there's no weaponization of this. It's only for juggling.
Wait, why would you fight Godzilla?
Godzilla's a good guy.
All right, Gamera.
Maybe Godzilla needs help.
So we're not really at the Pacific Rim level of giant robot
I am
technology.
doubtful that he could make
But-
the hydraulics move those arms that fast at that scale.
Yeah, that was my thought too.
You know that those cars are going to be shredded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's just the whole thing is just ridiculous.
And on top of everything, he's estimating a budget of $2.3 million,
Yeah, sure, whatever.
which to me sounds outrageously low.
Seems low.
I don't know about you, Skeptics. I think it needs
God Almighty!
So, we still
It's
have
a neat
one.
idea, and but
Can we
Yeah.
put Michael Godot up in the
obvious.
control booth?
You need a. I mean, this would be a new outlet for jugglers' employment. Juggling giant freaking robot drivers. Okay, so moving on. That's my stories. We've got robots that write articles and a giant freaking juggling robot. And Tim is up next. Tim's got stuff. I almost forgot you, Tim. I'm not going to forget you.
I didn't know what I was going to talk about, but turns out the story I picked kind of ties in with what some other folks were talking about in terms
Giant
of
freaking robots?
Yeah.
Well, Barbara's story about the blankets and stuff. I'm going to talk about that Facebook study that was all over, oddly enough, Twitter for the last week. Because about a month ago in episode 91, I talked about how there's a lot of... I talked about a troll study and how there's a lot of... I wrote a blog post that week about how there's a lot of actual science that goes on regarding the web and the internet, mostly by computer scientists. And it's interesting stuff, and I don't see skeptics paying too much attention to it. In that case, I was interested in the pro side of here's a good study that talks about how the internet works and maybe how skeptics can help it work better. Or because there was one study that we talked about on that show about sending Snopes links to people. Does that work? Someone actually studied that. But this study is a little bit less. And this study had actually come out about that same time, early in June. And it was a typical press release. There were a few minor articles here and there, and nobody was paying much attention to it. It was a study done by in-house folks at Facebook. And Cornell University, apparently. But companies like Facebook and Google and even the company I work for have these huge troves of data that they gather in the process of doing stuff for customers. And a lot of times there's interesting trends and things in that data, so people will do studies on it. Well, in this case, they were interested in how moods transfer from person to person on social media.
Yeah.
So what they did was they looked at positive wording and negative wording in Facebook posts and tried to see if that transmitted. It was an interesting idea for a study, right? If you see positive stuff, are you more positive in the things that you post? But their results were not super compelling. They saw a minor effect. Where the controversy came in and where they ended up inadvertently manipulating a lot of moods was the fact that the way they studied this was not by just looking at positive words and negative words, but they actually manipulated the words that you saw. And the way that they did this, if you're not aware, on Twitter and on Google Plus and some other services, you decide who you're going to follow, and you see everything they produce, and it flows by. And if you don't have time for it, it just flows by like a river.
Yep.
On Facebook, if you follow more than your family, you don't see everything, regardless of what you do, unless you go in and tweak it to death. there are things you are not going to see. And Facebook has an algorithm they call EdgeRank where they use to decide which posts you see and which posts you don't. So you can easily miss things on Facebook. They don't even show up in your feed. Well, what these researchers did was they actually tweaked the algorithm. They picked 690-some thousand people at random, and they changed the algorithm to send a slightly more positive mix of posts to some people and a slightly more negative mix of posts to other people, and watched whether their wording changed. Now, there's a couple problems with this. One is they didn't tell anybody they were doing this, and they didn't submit it to an institutional review board, as far as anybody can tell.
They did.
Yeah.
They did.
Oh, they did?
If it was Stanford, they had to.
They did. They did. How it got through an IRB, I don't know. But
well, anyway, we don't need to, for an hour-long show, get into all the details, but people were up in arms about the ethics of changing people's Facebook feeds without specifically notifying the people who were involved. And Facebook claimed they had consent because when you, like most free services, you consent to get on there, but there's some people who are, I've seen some articles that argue that the Facebook license agreement doesn't cover stuff like this. So there was a lot of arguing back and forth over whether this was even ethical or correct, for basically a pretty crappy result. And as I said, the end result has been they've been manipulating a lot of emotions of science communicators on Twitter inadvertently by doing this. But I actually found there was somebody who posted on my Facebook feed, and I should give the guy credit because I never would have found this on my own. Let's see if I can find it.
I didn't know that didn't come from Facebook.
Huh?
How do you know that didn't come from Facebook?
No, this was one of the fellows, Skeptics. It was Steve Williamson. So thanks, Steve. Sent me this link from a site called Psych Central, which is, I guess, a psychology portal.
Yeah, it's a pretty big psychology site that has kind of summarized stuff.
Right, and this guy by the name of John Grohol wrote an article where he looked at this study. And he said one of the things, and I haven't seen anybody else point this out, he dug into exactly how they were doing the study and what they were using to decide whether or not a Facebook post was positive or negative. And his contention is they were using completely inappropriate methods. They were using a piece of software called LIWC, Linguistic Inquiry and Word Count, that was built back in 2007. And it's designed to analyze fairly substantial pieces of text, like entire blog posts, articles, books, things like that. Well, as you know, a typical Facebook post is like 3 sentences, maybe. It's a little bit longer than a Twitter post, but usually not that much longer. Now, some people write little articles, but most people write fairly short things on Facebook. And his contention is that they were using an inappropriate measuring method to decide what is positive and what is negative, and so therefore their result is basically meaningless. So all this hoo-ha is for nothing.
Well, it's not the result that matters or even the method that matters. Well, the method matters, but the fact that the question of ethics has really nothing to do with the question of mechanics.
Right.
And there's no way that would ever get by my IRB board. I mean, it's just not something that you do. The problem is that, you know, the difference between just analyzing people's feeds and their output and deciding if, you know, negative input means negative output and so forth, and what they did is they could make causal claims if their methodology was good. If they've got problems with what we call construct validity, which is the construct of negative and positive it's not defined properly. But
yeah. And a lot of people were characterizing this that they were manipulating people's moods, and
but they are.
I've seen it appear as mind control, and the conspiracy theory boards, it's mind control.
Well, here's the problem, though. They are, the intent was to manipulate people's moods. If you're hypothesis, which is supposed to be, if you're a good scientist, your hypothesis is supposed to be theoretically likely. And if it's theoretically likely, you expect to be manipulating something, and they expected to be manipulating people's moods. Now, they may not have done that very well. The point isn't I wouldn't be upset by what they did. What I'm upset about is that they were allowed to do it, because it does not meet the standards of ethics. Unfortunately, though, manipulations, experimental manipulations like the one they did, are the way that you get at causal conclusions, and that's why they did it rather than just analyzing.
Could I throw something out there?
I understand that, but the point I was getting at is they were using an analog for moods, which is positive and negative words and feed, and that's it. You could make the argument that just because someone's using positive words in their feed, that doesn't necessarily map.
I'd just like to say
that is what they expected to do. That it's not the mechanics or how badly they did it isn't the issue when you're trying to analyze it ethically. The question is, what is the intent here? And the intent was to manipulate people's moods. Okay, they did it really badly. And one of the things that I was going to say when you were talking that came to mind is, I've found that a lot of times when people break ethical rules, their methodology usually is pretty bad too. If you look at someone like Wakefield's study was such an enormous mess that even if he had not lied about a single thing, still would the outcome would still be meaningless because it was so bad. And that's what usually happens when you see these ethical breaches. It's usually a bad science to begin with. And so the results would be meaningless anyway.
And they're having to do the ethically dumb things to get it through. Instead of being stopped.
Can I jump in real quick?
Go quick, because we're running out of time.
So first thing, they clearly don't realize that most of what, like, for instance, if they were to read my feed, I'm constantly being snarky, and therefore the positive negative thing, that's just all irony.
Right.
But
that's
the other thing, when it comes to the moral and ethical things here, what conceivable harm is there to
manipulating people's moods?
Yeah, one of the over-the-top reactions to it was there are documented maps of moods. Somebody said, could Facebook be implicated in a suicide? It's basically saying if you sent somebody into a downward mood swing, could you push them far enough that they would contemplate suicide or some other terrible action?
The bigger issue is the lack of informed consent.
Yeah.
When we do these types of experiments, we do manipulate moods all the time. I did it as a grad student, and we don't necessarily tell people that that's what we're doing, but they know that we're doing something.
Right. They know that
they're
part of an experiment,
and they're being manipulated in some way.
But some of the things that Facebook is already doing, like tailoring your feed to your preferences. All that stuff is
well, we know they're doing that. They're telling us they're doing that. And it's not designed to harm people. It's not, the hypothesis isn't to harm people, it's to improve your experience, right? They actually went into this with the hypothesis that they were going to make people
sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, everyone on my Facebook feed has been really nasty to me for the last couple of weeks, and now I know why.
We don't like you.
No, that's not a artifact.
Yes.
That's your life.
Rebelling against you.
Well, Tim, since you're already getting the attention, I'm sorry, we got to move on because we're running out of time. But we need to do the trivia question.
Oh yeah.
The
question was.
Got it. Yeah.
So a couple people got it. To basically, whose birthday? What skeptic's birthday is it today? A well-known skeptic of alternative medicine and retired physician. And the answer is Harriet A. Hall. And
Yay.
I believe Pierre was the first to get it on the YouTube comments. Amanda also got it. A couple people got wrong answers, but congratulations, Pierre.
Yay, congratulations.
And happy birthday, Harriet.
Hooray, Harriet.
Happy birthday, Harriet.
And nobody got both videos behind me, which are both frozen apparently right
Yeah.
now. And one of them froze about halfway through the show for some strange reason.
Yeah.
But most everyone got the one on the right. My right, your left, I guess. I don't know. It was Bill Nye, Science Guy. It was an episode on germs from sometime a long time ago. I don't even remember. The other one was Beekman's World. If you got that one, then yay for you.
That was
If
really.
not, I didn't get it.
The other one really should have been Ken Ham.
Really?
And,
That would have been a
Nye
good
versus
theme.
Ham.
That would have been a good theme. Okay, so do we have any announcements before we're getting our books for book time? Announcements. I don't
Cam
know.
next week.
Kidding.
Yeah,
Cam.
our announcement is we don't know what the hell we're doing at TAM.
Yes. Which
No.
I know what I'm doing. I
Well,
just don't
virtual
know.
skeptic wise.
Okay, no.
Right. It's if past experience is any guide, it's unlikely that we would do a show on Wednesday of next week.
Yeah.
Yes.
Even if we can get set up, the folks who are at TAM can get set up. Wednesday night is an astonishingly bad time because people are arriving from the airport and da-da-da-da-da. So watch the blog and the Twitter feed and we'll figure something out.
We may be able to throw together some kind of a social thing or
Last
or
year we
makeshift
did a
stuff.
little one up. We went up to someone's room and we recorded a kind of impromptu show.
Yep, and I had done Virtual Turkey Skeptically. Now, unfortunately, I won't be doing one from TAM because I won't be there this year. But it's possible we could throw it together. So pay attention. And that leads to book time. Who wants to go first?
I'm ready.
Go, Tim. Go.
The helper dog is an asshole. A few months after we adopted the simple dog, we decided that we didn't have enough dog-related challenges in our lives. So we set out to find us a friend for the simple dog. When we arrived at the shelter, they were like, "Hello, we've got all sorts of wonderful animals here." And we said, "No thanks, just go back there and bring us the most hopeless, psychologically destroyed dog monster that you can find." One of the shelter workers led us to a kennel in the very back corner. It contained a mangy German Shepherd mix that had been there for months because nobody else wanted it. The shelter worker said, "This one hates everything, and she doesn't know anything, and I hope you aren't planning on taking her outside ever, because she's really more like a bear than a dog, really. And unfortunately, she can scale a 7-foot-tall fence like fucking Spider-Man."
Could you just keep reading this? This will be great.
I know, this is awesome.
And we were like, "Sure, why not?" We were feeling pretty optimistic because on some level we both felt like maybe we were dog whisperers, and we could use our magical powers to convince this new dog not to be any of the things the shelter worker had just said. As it turns out, we are not dog whisperers.
And neither is he. Go ahead, Bob.
During the mid-1980s, I spent a little over a year working in a trailer park near the huge wind tunnels at NASA's Ames Research Center on the shores of San Francisco Bay.
Been there. Been there.
A sign written in large bold letters
Sorry.
and displayed in one of the trailer's windows, "ET phone home," hinted that something out of the ordinary might be going on inside. In fact, the trailer served as an overflow office for NASA's fledgling SETI program.
Cool. Eve. I'm going in order, so.
At that moment, the trolls came trooping toward them, and they were so big their heads were level with the fir trees. But they had only one eye for the three of them, and they took turns using it. There was a hole in each forehead where they put it in using their hands. The one out in front had to have it in. The others followed, holding on to the one ahead. "Take to your heels," shouted the older boy, "but don't go too far till you see how it goes. Since the eye is up so high, they'll have trouble seeing me as I come up behind them." Well, the brother ran and the trolls after him. Meanwhile, the elder brother came up behind the trolls and with his axe whacked the last one in line so that he let out a dreadful yell. That frightened the lead troll, so he jumped and dropped the eye, and the lad was not slow in grabbing it.
Clearly not jugglers. Go ahead, Barbara.
Mr. and Mrs. Earl J. Dunn of Minneapolis were visiting the canyon area on Sunday, July 13th, 1924. He was age 34 and she was 29. At 3:30 p.m., after obtaining a grand view of the canyon at Grandview, the pair returned to their Ford coupe and started it up. They were parked at a spot about 50 feet north of Grandview, and there Mr. Dunn apparently had some difficulty turning the car around. Disaster struck in an instant. Mrs. Dunn must have screamed as she realized he had backed them off the edge of the canyon, and they were falling vertically. The car fell 100 feet and bounced mercilessly for another nearly vertical 100 feet. Finally, bounced up 100 feet. Finally, lodging at the foot of a ledge. The two bodies continued downward, rolling and bouncing off of numerous pinnacles and rock outcrops and landing some 800 feet below Grandview and 200 feet from the river. Mr. and Mrs. Dunn were mangled and broken and quite dead.
Ta-da!
And they lived happily. Oh.
And they lived, no. Those who find ugly meanings in beautiful things are corrupt without being charming. This is a fault. Those who find beautiful meanings in beautiful things are cultivated. For these there are hope. They are the elect whom beautiful things mean only beauty. There is no such thing as a moral or an immoral book. Books are well written or badly written, that is all.
Huh.
Tim, what's your book? I really want to know.
Yeah.
You're muted.
Yeah, okay. It's called Hyperbole.
Oh,
Oh, yeah. I thought
Awesome.
I recognized
You
that.
may recognize this character from the meme, clean all the things, or blank all the things. But yeah, it's from that blog. It's absolutely hilarious. I read this on the plane back from, and it's got cool cartoons, and
That
it's
is
just
awesome. I'm going to have to check that out. Go ahead, Bob. What's yours?
I was reading A Tale of Two Analogs Learning at a Distance from the Ancient Greeks and Maya and the Problem of Deciphering Extraterrestrial Radio Transmissions, a free book from NASA called Archaeology, Anthropology, and Interstellar Communication.
So not automatically generated.
Probably not.
Okay. Eve.
Norwegian Trolls and Other Tales by Florence Ekstrand.
What a completely expected title.
Yes. Trolls.
Trolls. Yay. Go ahead, Barb. What's yours?
I was reading Death in Yellowstone, Accidents and Foolhardiness in the First National Park. This is one I talked about last time, I think it was.
Was that Vaughn?
Entertaining. What?
Was that what?
No, Brian's. Sorry.
What?
Jumped the gun.
No. I picked this quote and this book before you made the reference earlier during this episode, which is why it freaked me out. This is from The Picture of Dorian Gray, because I just recently reread it, and I hadn't read it as a kid, so amazingly enough. But, yeah, I've been doing Oscar Wilde quotes like for 2 weeks now, and everyone's like, oh, that sounds like Oscar Wilde. And I'm like, yeah, it is.
But it's me. It's really just me.
Just wandering around going, those curtains have to go.
Either those curtains go or I go. No.
Whoa.
So there you go. There's our episode. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for contributing on the inner tubes and all that mess. Now we get to put the logo. There we go. And see, the music working? Hey, it's actually working. Somewhat. Everybody dance. Virtual Skeptics is an independent production of What'sTheHoney.net, Skeptical Humanity, myself, ICS Everywhere, and Doubtful News. Our logo is designed by Sarah Menu at SarahMenu.com. Our theme music is by Musicant, and it is used with permission. Juggling robots.